Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Coming to you live from our comfy couch here on the outskirts of the internet. And this is the Gaming Saloon Reviews for December 23rd, 2019. With your host, Spacebreaker2448 and Rampant Epsilon.
Hi.
We have a movie to talk about.
And if you're wondering why the box for the music is smaller, it's because the movie's title is long.
Extremely long. Thanks, Writer Movies, for having extremely long titles.
I mean, at least it's not extremely long and extremely dumb.
Yes.
I mean, one or the other's fine, but as long as it's not both, we're good.
Yep. But, before we get into the movie, I saw another movie this weekend.
Oh boy.
I saw the Star Wars movie this weekend.
Oh boy.
Yeah, the one that's getting some hard mixed reviews on.
The one that had to fix the last one?
I don't know.
Because I kind of feel like that was general consensus, was the last one was a mess.
To be fair, this one's also a mess, so I don't know if that's any better.
I mean,
how would you like a movie to be full throttle 100 miles an hour from beginning to end of a nearly 3-hour movie?
I mean, isn't that how you make money?
I wish not, because fuck's sakes, this movie moves way too fast. Way too fast. Oh my god. But like I know people don't like this movie very hard for reasons that I completely understand, because there's some shit in here that I'm like, maybe no, maybe no on that huge plot point that only exists in Fortnite or the opening crawl of the movie. I wish I was kidding. I'm not. Yeah, we get dumped a major plot point in the opening crawl, but it exists in the Fortnite event.
Well,
not as footage, just as an audio thing. So yeah, like that, and then some stuff in the middle of the movie, and then later on. But like, it's fine. It's a fine mess. I just don't like how they're just like, this is the end of a saga. What do you mean? This has only been a saga with this movie. What are you talking about? No, you are not Marvel, even though you are owned by the same company. You are not Marvel. You did not plan this out. It is very obvious, especially with this trilogy, that you did not have a plan. You kind of just made this shit up as you went. Don't fucking make this into a saga, please. So yeah, it's a very fine mess, is the best way I can sum up that movie. I don't hate it, but I'm not in love with it either.
Well,
I feel like one reviewer I know I watched that reviewed the first of those reboot Star Trek movies, and people were super polarized on that one, and he's just like, oh my god, this movie's fine. It's not spectacular or amazing, but it's fine, and I am in the middle on this, and I am scared to be in the middle on this. But yeah, you mentioned you were able to watch Zero One for the week, right?
For the one that just came out?
Yes.
No.
Oh, okay. So you have not seen Shining Assault in action?
No.
Okay. It is a very good fight scene, and there's a thing in there that I was not expecting, because it wasn't in any of toy stuff or any magazine stuff, but it's kind of neat thing to have. I wonder if this will evolve into something later.
I mean, I would have to think probably.
Yeah. Also, I do love that apparently Aruto and Fua are just going to pass the assault grip back and forth whenever they need it. And Fua has to literally rip the damn thing off, whereas Aruto does not. Once more, continuing the trend of just like, good lord, let this man just have an easy time with this shit. Please.
But he has to struggle for everything.
He has to struggle and be angry all the goddamn time.
You know what? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the keys won't open because he's angry all the time.
That would honestly make sense.
And that would so fit in if they ever asked.
Yeah. And I love how he literally calls it his upgrade. It's mine, damn it. The assault triggers, the assault grip's mine. Don't fucking take it. Even though we know from magazine scans, the two of them can exist at the same time. But yeah, anything else before we get into the movie?
No?
Alright then, this week folks, we are watching the Kamen Rider Fourze solo film dubbed The Movie Space is Here, or Space is Awesome, or It's Space Time, depending on how you want to take the translation of Ichikata. Quite literally. This came out August 4th, 2012. We have Koichi Sakamoto as our director, which should be very obvious in a fight scene we'll get to later. And our writer is Kazuki Nakashima, the usual writer for Fourze. So how did you feel going into this?
I mean, I kind of didn't know what to think going into it. I would assume it would be kind of like what we've been seeing with Fourze, and I feel like I was kind of right on that.
Yeah, and also this is the first, it's not our first time, but this is the first time you would be running into Toei's reboot material with a pair of characters we get introduced to later on in the movie. Technically 4, because they're all 4 from the same material. But this is coming out kind of around the same time as the Go Busters Gavon stuff. So Toei trying hard to find a new franchise among all of their old properties. And only the original trio of Metal Heroes, Gabon, Charavan, Shider, went anywhere and more or less just went into a crossover sub-series with Sentai. And that was it. Nothing else they tried went anywhere. And I do mean nothing else. Yeah, it was nice to go back to this movie, and it's weird that I feel like, oh look, someone looked at A to Z and thought, oh, that's how we should pattern our movies after. Kind of.
Which is kind of a good thing, actually.
Yeah, that's honestly, I feel like the solo movies are at their best when it's just like, all right, here is an outside threat being tossed into our normal setting, and our heroes have to deal with it. Well, our villains just kind of go, let's see what happens, to, hey, let's help the heroes. Because fuck those guys, they're disrupting our plans. Just as a quick note on continuity, because I've already talked about it, so this movie does take place between episodes 38 and 39. Talked about that last week. There's a specific moment that more or less,
confirms it.
yeah, and I think that scene's only in the director's cut version.
Really?
So otherwise, yeah, apparently I have not watched the director's cut version. We are only watching the director's cut version of this. But for what I was reading information-wise, that might have only been in the director's cut version. Because bear in mind, this movie came out.
That feels like that's way too important to only be in the director's cut.
Right.
Like that's way too important. And
yeah.
And just so those that haven't, there is a point that comes up where one of the horoscopes is mentioned as not being known yet.
4 of them are, actually.
Well, one in particular that directly places this.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
4, yes, but one in particular.
For reference, that is Taurus, folks. The 4 in general are Taurus, Gemini, Pisces, and Sagittarius, which is not the order they are introduced in, almost. Technically, Sagittarius comes in before the other 2.
Huh.
Yeah, we get introduced to Sagittarius before the other 2.
Well then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have to double check the non-director's cut version to see if this line still exists, because I don't know what else is different between these 2 versions outside of this is an hour-and-a-half long movie, whereas I'm sure the director's cut or the non-director's cut version is probably like an hour and change. I'm willing to bet.
Yeah.
Also, we have a special guest appearance by a certain magic writer. Wizard makes his debut in this movie. If you're wondering his continuity, well, he got his powers 6 months before the start of his series, so it's somewhere in that 6-month time period. Probably.
Which makes sense, too, because didn't he kind of just say that he was goofing around?
Pretty much.
So it's like, yeah, that kind of fits, because there is no story going on at the moment.
Yeah, he's more or less just casually taking out phantoms whenever they crop up. He has no plot at the moment. Nor does he keep the writer title that he is bequeathed in this movie. Uh-oh. Discord?
Discord's fine.
Okay. I thought it went silent, so I thought something happened.
No, nothing happened.
Okay, good. Yeah, anything else before we get into the recap?
No.
Alright, we kick off with Gamao, Hayame, and Leo delivering copies of the 12 horoscope switches to Foundation X. Don't ask me where they got the other 4 since they don't exist yet. Don't worry about it. That's the slight snag in this movie. How do you have copies of things that you don't even have yet? Assumingly of 3 of these. Because I'm not sure if you have Sagittarius yet. I forgot the specific events of Sagittarius' introduction. But this exchange is interrupted by Inga Black. Or, I say Black. Inga Blink. Why do I keep trying to think of her as Inga Black? That is not her name. But she ends up stealing the switches for reasons we will get to later. And when the Foundation X goons try to stop her, she mops the floor with the whole lot of them. Thus proving she's a fairly capable fighter. But not capable enough to deal with Leo, untransformed, who proceeds to whip her butt. And set her up to be run over by a car. Twice. Yeah. Thankfully, this is when Black Knight arrives to help her. They dub him a space Tetsujin. More or less, he's a space android powered by cosmic magic. That's really it. He's a fancy robot powered by space magic. But he ends up fighting off.
That actually kind of works.
Yep. Ends up fighting off Leo, Libra, and the standard issue Foundation X attack helicopter, giving him and Inga a chance to escape with the stolen switches. Kamau calls off his goons, but Foundation X follows. We will not see them for the rest of the movie. Don't worry about them.
They're not important.
Nope, this is not a Foundation X movie, so they're off. The next day, Gentro's class is having a computer class, and Gentro immediately tries to befriend the computer and almost breaks it in the process.
Yeah.
He even does the handshake with the mouse, which is not the weirdest handshake he will do this entire movie.
At all.
God damn it.
I mean, I guess technically that means that computer is his friend now?
Sure. That one computer.
Not any others, just that one.
Yep. Unless we count it being connected to the internet, then Gentro has befriended the internet. Maybe. Anyway.
I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah. Anyway, Isugi drops by, more or less calling the club members that are there, which is the usual club members in the class, away for club business. More or less giving the excuse of, it's important stuff. Don't worry about it. Bye. So they are rushed off to the rabbit hutch, where they end up meeting a girl named Shizuka from a space agency that I didn't even bother writing down the name of because it's not important.
Because it only, comes up, 3 times and then that's it?
Yeah, they are a space agency of some variety that allows them to get to space. That is the short and the long of their importance.
And I think part of the explanation was essentially whatever their name is kind of came from the company that it was.
Yep.
And yeah. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I feel like this should be important. Why is it not?
I think it's supposed to be a meta reference to the fact of who this character turns into later.
I mean, maybe
that's my assumption. or it's a reference to something else. I don't know. Anyway, she's here because she knows about the hutch and the writers and everything else, so we don't have to worry about explaining anything to her. Even though that's extremely suspicious, especially since she knows who Ryusei is, who's been keeping his identity secret. So, that's weird. That's suspicious.
And who there is only a literal handful of people that would even know.
Yeah.
And I believe, doesn't Usugi actually not know? Because I thought they didn't tell him.
They didn't tell him as a gag for an end of the episode, but I don't know if they informed him later. He's not around enough for it to matter.
Followed up on that part, so that's one of those I'm like, he might not even know going into this, and here we go, just okay.
Although I do like that Ryusei is the one who's suspicious of all of this, because he's just like, how the fuck do you even know about me? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
Yeah, he's suspicious of this for all of that 5 seconds.
Yeah. But yeah, she's asking the club for assistance in dealing with a threat to Earth that is in space. Therefore, we must call on the Space Riders. The club decides to agree to this to see what the fuck's going on and are taken by bus blindfolded to some secret location somewhere. Don't worry about it, even though where this fight eventually happens is not that far from where we started the movie, because that's the same parking garage. I don't know if that's intentional or not.
Possibly.
Maybe. Anyway, en route to their location, they are attacked by Black Knight and Inga, who intend to stop them for reasons we'll get to later. So Gentro has to hop onto the Masigler, which is, I guess, been driving next to them the entire time because it's just there. Or Kengo called it in the middle of them being shot at.
And if he did, boy, that moved really quickly.
Yep. But he hops off to go fight the Black Knight while Inga continues to give chase on motorcycle because, for all intents and purposes, she's almost considered a writer, considering how much she does action-wise this entire movie.
Yeah.
But while Inga's giving chase, Gentro uses a variety of combos of switches plus the bike to fend off the Black Knight. But we do cut back to see Inga does make it onto the bus and pulls a gun on Shizuka, specifically. Kind of not the club because she's not pointing it at anyone else, which is a tell of sorts. But this is when Ryusei intervenes, untransformed, mind you. No transformation on his part just yet. Whereas Gentro has already transformed to fight Inga, and the two of them take the fight off the bus onto one of the escort cars, and then off the car where they both go flying off of it. And I'm sure they're both fine from that. I'm sure that wouldn't injure both of them gravely. Anyway, the bus stops and the club gets off to see Ryusei take the five-finger death punch that he delivered to Gentro to his gut by Inga, and sends him flying. Yeah, but it's because it's not to the heart; it's to the gut. That's the difference.
We'll go with that.
It sends him flying and leaves him injured for a little bit. But this is when Gentro arrives to intervene, only for Inga to call Black Knight, and the two of them bug off because it's like, well, we're done. Goodbye. So we cut to the secret base for this space agency the club has been brought to, and they are informed of a satellite called XV2, which is spelled with Roman numerals. Or spelled in the style of Roman numerals, except it's just XV2.
Yeah.
Don't ask. It's just how it is. It's again a reference. We'll get there. That has some sort of heavy beam cannon that can blow up small islands. Maybe not the biggest threat in the world, but when your country is a small island, yeah, that's probably a problem. But apparently the satellite has fallen under the command of two other space Tetsujin named Kyoidine and Skydyne. And they are seeking vengeance against humanity for reasons we'll get to later. Don't worry. We'll get to where all this backstory comes into play.
Yeah.
There's a reason we don't get any of it now. But the club is needed to infiltrate the satellite and reprogram XV2 to stop it from being under the command of our space Iron Man. I say that for a reason. We'll get there. This is when the general manager of the agency, Harumi, shows up, hams it up with his roller skate entrance, also wanting the club's assistance, and I guess that's the push the club needed to resolve the help, with Gentro being Gentro and deciding he's going to befriend the satellite.
Because of course he is.
Yeah, that's Gentro for us. This is where we get a nice long, and I'm sure longer in the director's cut, montage of the team training and preparing for the mission, going through all sorts of space training. We get plenty of little moments like Yuki headbutting Gentaro, Ryusei trying to teach Tomoko how to fight, and lots of other little moments. It's a really nice moment to like shine on all the club's personalities. But we end the montage the night before where the club gathers, does a bit of bonding before the mission. And Gentaro has a quick note about the switches being machines, but also proof of their friendship, which is all Gentaro needs to know. It's like, oh yeah, I can totally befriend the satellite then. If I can befriend the switch, I can befriend the satellite. That's logical.
I mean, for Gentaro, yes.
Yep. Meanwhile, Inga is preparing the horoscope switches. So the next day, we see the club walk out of actually hangar from Megamax because they are at Airport X. And they are going to be using the Exodus from Megamax to reach the satellite. A bit of nice connective continuity. Especially since all of the club members have the various labels for the switches on their uniforms. And I'm sure all of them are references to something. Because, oh boy, does this movie love its references with the switches. We'll get there. But Gentaro has the Super 1 patch right on his chest. Which is the only appearance of Super 1, actually, because it's not used in this movie. For reasons we'll get to. Before they can hop on to the Exodus, they are interrupted by all 12 horoscopes. Bear in mind, dummy horoscopes, because they're just a pile of space magic in semi-sentient form, arriving to fight them. And the group does a nice thing for the audience by telling us who's who, along with the 4 you would have not seen by the point of this movie releasing, I believe. I think you would have been introduced to Sagittarius by now, but not Gemini and Pisces. So it's just like, hey, here's everybody. Here's what all these are. So this is why all of these are here, is because we were not going to get this fight scene in the show. We are not getting all 12 horoscopes showing up for a fight scene. That's not happening. So we're doing it here in the movie. And that is why Gumao is selling all 12 horoscopes at the start of this movie, even though he doesn't have access to like 2 of them, at least. Maybe 3? Question mark? Or at the very least 3, if not 4.
Yeah.
So yeah. So Gentaro Ryusei decides to transform and fight off these dummies to give the group the rest of the time to prep for launch, since the Exodus is on a timer and on autopilot, so it's going to launch whether they're on there or not, and they need to delay them long enough to launch. So we're on a time limit. Make note of that, because I'm going to ask you something once we're done recapping this part. Okay. So Gentaro Ryusei transforming, I believe, for the first time together on screen, because they haven't done that at all in the series at this point.
Yeah, at all.
Yep. They proceed to fight off all 12 horoscopes by literally throwing everything they have at them. Not only does Gentaro use all 40 switches he has access to, minus Super Rocket, he throws any combination he can think of at them. Ryusei throws everything in the meteor system at them. So all 3 of the planet switches, every limit break he has, every finisher he has with Meteor Storm. Gentaro pops about 6 or 7 limit breaks And it is a very, very long fight scene of nonstop going back and ping-ponging back and forth between Gintaro and Ryusei, taking on their separate groups. And it is, I'm not gonna lie, a pretty glorious fight scene. As they whittle down the numbers to 4, but they are exhausted by that point, as they have had to fight off all 12 horoscopes, and they even note that they are strong as fuck. These are not just disposable goons. But by the time they're exhausted, a mysterious rider arrives. It is, in fact, Wizard himself. He arrives to help out Gintaro, befriending him and bequeathing the rider title to him since he's helping out. Ryusei, of course, coming flying in off-screen, does not like this and tells him to not take it lightly. I like that it's him who says that, considering he had to earn that title the hard way.
Yeah.
But Gintaro calms him down, and the two of them tag out to go catch their flight. So, and another director's cut change that I know about, instead of here, where we have Life is Showtime, the Wizard theme song playing for Wizard's fight scene against the remaining horoscopes, it was some generic magic theme song, I believe, of some variety. Which, I'm glad that the director's cut made that change, because that makes the scene feel a lot better, since it is Wizard. This is Wizard's showcase fight scene before his series, so yeah, of course he gets the opening theme song.
Yeah, I do have to say that does kind of seem like that would flow better.
Yeah, especially since earlier for the montage, we got a... The dog's arfing at me.
Oh. You made me think Discord broke.
No, I heard him. And I was just like, oh, of course he is. But for the montage, we got a different rendition of Giant Step, which is the first I can't think of the word for it. The first battle theme for Fourze. So it's nice that we're getting a good bit of Fourze music. But yeah, Wizard proceeds to take out the remaining 4 horoscopes, and ensures the club gets a safe flight. Now, question. How long from charge at enemies to final rider kick do you think this fight scene takes? Because I actually took the time for this one.
I don't know, actually.
It is a almost solid 10 minutes. That is from Gintaro and Ryusei charging in to fight to Wizard ending his rider kick. 10 minutes of solid action. Of solid non-stop action, only interrupted by Wizard's introduction and Kingo calling in to be like, hey, you gotta get on the bus now. It's time to go. So yeah, that is a solid 10-minute fight scene. And this is why I wish Sakamoto got to do a Grand Geo fight scene. Because imagine this, but with Grand Geo at his disposal. Geez. Yeah. You are handing a man who loves when you hand him the box with all the toys and goes, how can I use every toy in this box? He absolutely loves doing that, and I love that he loves doing it because it makes for really fun fight scenes. And I wish Grand Geo got to have a fight scene like this, where he is just popping different riders, different forms, different weapons, just in an all-out blitz to try to beat up whoever he's up against. Because bear in mind, this is not a one-sided fight scene. Gintaro and Ryusei earn every kill they get. Some of them pretty brutally, mind you, because I believe it's Crabman. He pretty much has on the ground, and he point blanks, limit breaks, fires gun one just directly into his chest. I forget which one he is, but I know he had someone on the ground and just jammed the gun into his gut and just pulled the trigger and just was like, whoop, you're dead. Because he's like, bear in mind, they are up against the main bad guys that are throwing everything they have at them. So, but anyway, we see the Exodus make it to space, which I believe is also reused footage from Mega Max, maybe? With more explosions to cover up the fact that it's reused footage.
Can't remember right offhand. I think you're right.
But yeah, the Exodus makes it into space, and we get the plan of what they're going to do. There are 4 nodes with an XV2 that are going to need to destroy, so they can reprogram the satellite at the main control center. So the club is going to split up accordingly to go destroy them. And before we land, Gentaro and Yuki have a nice little quiet moment where Gentaro reiterates him going to befriend the satellite because that's important. Before they are unfortunately fired upon by the satellite, so they gotta strap in for a rough landing. Out of curiosity, do you recognize the sound from them, like, putting on the roller coaster seatbelts?
No. Sure
That's the driver on noise for the Fourze driver.
Gosh.
Yeah, it is. It's just pitched slightly. There's another noise in here that I'm pretty sure I recognize from Fourze itself, but it's just pitched, so you don't quite recognize it. But anyway, they strap in. They have a bit of a rough landing, but manage to land, and they're ready to exit. Only for Inga and Black Knight to stop them at the door because they hopped on for a ride. And in this, Inga ends up shooting Shizuka in the arm. And the only one she injures, even though she fired several shots in there.
I mean, she's a bad shot.
Supposedly.
She's much better with her hands.
Yeah. This is where Yusei decides to fight her again. In Black Knight, without transforming, mind you. To give the rest of them a chance to run. So as they get outside, they end up finding a bunch of little... I don't know what to call them, robots. They're little, like, 4-wheeled robot things. And Gentaro tries a friendship check with them, and it fails, and they get shot at. I love how Gentaro, is every turn of this movie, is trying to friendship his way through it.
I mean, of course he would.
But this is where the Black Knight leaves Ryusei to Inga and goes to fight Gentaro, while Shun grabs their pyrodizer, I assume is just in the cargo hold of the ship, and he goes off to fight the robots. And this is where the club splits up accordingly, with Kengo and Shizuka being one group, Gentaro and Yuki as another, Tomoko and Ryusei as one, and finally Jake and Miyu with Shun kind of following them to take out the robots. But we check in with Ryusei and Tomoko first as they finally make it out of the ship and onto the satellite itself, where Ryusei has Inga recite his dojo's mantra, confirming that she is a student, giving Ryusei the chance to question her actions and her motivations, and she gives a non-committal answer because she refuses to give them a clean answer for reasons we'll get to later. Checking in with Shun, he's continuing to fight off the robots, giving the game a time to make it to the nodes. Checking in with Yuki and Gentaro, because we kind of bounce around between everybody now, so if I miss something, it's because there's a lot happening as we bounce around. Yuki's running ahead of Gentaro as they've lost the Black Knight at this point. And as she's running forward, she ends up tripping on a panel that pops up out of nowhere, and it prevents her from running directly into lasers that would have sliced and diced her. which Gintro quickly takes out so they can progress forward. And it's a note that his confidence in this is shaken a little bit because he's like, oh, that's weird. I wonder why that happened. But at this point, everyone makes it to their nodes. Everyone's managed to plant theirs, except for Tomoko. Tomoko and Ryusei, which Tomoko was the one with the bomb, because they are being stalled by Inga. The bombs are on a timer because the nodes have to be destroyed simultaneously. But Togo manages to plant hers in time, even though Inga had her gun trained on her long enough to have actually shot her, but didn't. So Ryusei was able to stop her. Or Ryusei was able to interrupt Inga and let Tomoko plant hers. The nodes are destroyed, but after some questioning Inga, we find out that things are not as they seem. Because, yeah, guess what? It's time for a face heel turn. That is also hinted at earlier with Kingo and Shizuka's group.
Yeah.
But we do take a quick moment and go back to Isugi and the computer teacher from earlier, which they're actually a comedy duo. Their actors are, which is why he's in this movie. And why they keep having moments together.
And also why they're having this moment.
Yeah, because this moment is meant to foreshadow a thing later, and that's the short and long of the point of this scene. But we head back to the control room. Everyone's regrouping. Gentaro is being looked over by XV2's cameras, only for Shizuka just to shoot one of them off for like no other reason than to be a dick. But this is when Tomoko, Ryusei, and Inga arrive. And we find out that, oh yeah, those Tetsujin from earlier are, they're Shizuka and Harumi. This has all been a setup so they can get control of XV2 because those nodes were meant to limit them and prevent them from transforming. Oops. So yeah, all that footage you saw, no, that was XV2 trying to stop them and them blowing up humans. And also, by the way, Inga's father was the one who made them and were murdered by these two. So, Gentaro takes all this well, outside of being extremely pissed. And I mean, enough that instead of saying his usual praise, when he transforms later, he literally says, I am pissed.
Which I feel like that is odd. That's one of the few times that he is at that point.
Yeah, it takes a lot to break Gentro's demeanor. Setting him up to help a couple of androids destroy humanity? Yeah. But anyway, I guess I'll mention this here, but Groundon, or Kyodon, Skydyne, Black Knight, and Inga Brink are all from a old Ishinomori series. Let me get the name here real quick. Of course it's not there. Why would it be there? But they're from the original series Space Iron Man Kyodine, and they were Toei's attempts at kind of rebooting them. Which, for reference, who's good and who's bad is reversed in this movie from normal. So in the series, Groundon and Skydyne are the good guys, whereas Black Knight and Inga Blink, which is an anagram of her proper name from the series, are the bad guys. But here it's reversed. For, I guess, reasons for the twist. Just to throw you off and be like, oh, of course they're the good guys, right? Oh no.
Oh no.
Yep. So yeah, Gentaro transforms, or the club has to fight off a bunch of Dust Starts that are summoned. Gitaro gets a chance to transform to fight off the Dust Darts before the club is forced to retreat since, yeah, even though we have guns, which, by the way, the club has had guns this entire movie for the entire time they've been in the satellite. I think they're Nerf guns that have been repainted. I'm almost willing to bet they're Nerf guns.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Because it has this weird reload thing on the top for some stupid reason that they have to do every time they take a shot. But the club's forced to retreat. Black Knight tries to fight Groundon and Skydyne, but is destroyed. Leaving Gintaro and Yusei the only ones that can stop them now. Inga ends up leaving with the club since she's not much help to them at the moment, considering she probably can't take the two of them. Also, Gintaro and Ryusei, if shit goes bad, can leave with their drivers instead of, not having an option on that one.
Yeah. Instead of, going down with the ship.
Yep. Yeah, we see the club fight their way out with Shin using the Dizer to give them an opening, and we get some nice little fight scenes. Yuki and Tomoko have a comedy fight scene. Jake uses his breakdance moves. Miyu just fucking clocks people with the gun because I guess she's the most competent one with the gun. Even though in the training sequence, Gintaro and Ryusei were shown to be very confident with them, which... Why did you give them guns to start with? They're the ones with the belts. They don't need them.
Does everyone need gun?
Apparently. Yeah, as the club's fighting out, we see Shun is at his limit, unfortunately, in the Power Dizer. Only for Jake and Miyu to show up in their own Power Dizers, two... like a pink one and a green one with... I think the green one has chain guns on it. Which, okay. Sure. So the three of them have a nice little fight scene with their respective Dizers together as they fight their way back to the ship. Unfortunately for Gintaro and Ryusei, they're not having as good of a time as our siblings have whipped the shit out of them. Forcing them to try to go Cosmic and Meteor Storm, only to be immediately interrupted because you're not allowed to go your final forms in this movie. Goodbye. And after they've been knocked out of their transformations, they are literally thrown off the catwalk into the abyss of wherever this control room is overlooking. So Gintaro and Ryusei are not dead, but
might as well
in
be.
bad shape. Yeah. This is when we see XV2 transform into his giant robot mode, because of course he's a giant robot too. And he demonstrates his abilities to the world by blowing up some part of the ocean. And this is when the siblings broadcast out their notice of surrender or be exploded. And Gamal, who Hayame and Leo show up and like, we didn't go fucking take care of this. And Gamal's like, I'll be fine. Let's see what happens. I love how Gamal does not give a shit about this.
Well, I mean, I guess at this point, technically it won't hurt his plans since he could make duplicates of all the glitches.
Yeah. But this is when we see the Exodus land back on Earth, and the club plus Inga return to the hutch to figure out what the fuck their next move is, since, we don't have a way of getting to the satellite anymore, and the only two people who can help us are on that satellite, so we need a plan. But this is when we see that Gintaro and Yusei were saved by XV2, and he talks to them through the shot-off camera. But we find out that he is lacking control over most of his body, except for the self-destruct button. And he tells the two of them, you might want to leave because I'm going to blow this shit up in 5 minutes. I love how he lacks control of everything but the big red button that blows himself up.
Yeah, I know, right?
I feel like that's an oversight on the siblings' part of being like, maybe we should have control of that, and just so he doesn't try to take us out with him. But this is where Gentaro pretty much goes, fuck that plan, fuck this bullshit, I'm gonna fix this, and pulls a big brain dumbass move that only Gentaro can pull. Because his plan is that since the XV2 is in orbit around the Earth, he's going to knock it out of orbit. How, you may ask? I'm going to go cosmic and shove it through a warp gate. Bear in mind, when I said XV2 was a giant robot, it is a giant robot. Gentaro is going to shove a Megazord-sized robot through a warp gate.
I think it might actually even be bigger.
Probably. So Gentaro, who bear in mind in cosmic form is still an itty-bitty human, more or less shoves himself in the sword into the robot and manages to shove it through a warp gate through sheer force of will, friendship, and fuck off, I'm not happy. Unfortunately, by the time he lands back in the satellite, he's exhausted all 40 switches, meaning Gentaro isn't able to transform anymore, really. Because he kind of needs a switch in the driver to transform. And with no switches, he's shit out of luck. Because when the switches all exhaust, they all go back to the rabbit hutch into where they plug in, I guess, to recharge.
And technically, he can't just use Meteor's switch to make it work.
Technically not. Also, this is why Super Rocket is not in this movie, because if it wasn't, he would have that option.
Thus kind of making the rest of this mute point, but...
Well, it probably wouldn't help either, because I don't think Super Rocket would have worked. It also doesn't help that Gentaro's almost dead this entire fight scene to come, as he can't really defend himself, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, also, XV2's been dropped off on the moon and lands next to the rabbit hutch. Convenient. So, our day is kind of saved, except for the fact that now our heroes are stuck on a satellite with 2 androids that want to murder them, and don't have a way of stopping them. Uh-oh. So, now Ryusei, who does transform into Meteor immediately, and Gentaro, who can't transform and has to more or less try to fight them off with nothing but his bare hands, have to survive being killed. Survive against these 2 androids.
Yeah.
Spoilers, they are wrecked at every time we cut back to them here in these next few scenes. Even Meteor, who goes Meteor Storm after a while, is still wrecked by them.
Because all the upgrades in the world will not handle a movie villain.
Nope, you gotta get your own movie upgrades. Yeah, also, they try retreating and trying to shake them. Nah, that gets them like a couple seconds before they're continued to be beaten up. So the club, who are seeing all this because XP2 is transmitting this to them, see this, and they're just going, fuck, we're out of options. We literally have no options here. The switches don't work. We can't just poof another switch into existence because we literally don't have any more switches. But thankfully, XV2 sends them the plans for a new switch. Except it requires a massive amount of cosmic energy. And they just can't poop that out of nowhere.
Except for they do.
Right, but at least they build on established lore and the fact of, okay, we made cosmic using like the 7 of us.
Okay.
What if we used more people?
Okay. You say by established lore, you mean by established friendship magic.
Yes. It's the same thing.
Debatable.
Mm-hmm. But more or less building on the idea of Cosmic being forged by the club's friendship, they pretty much go, all right, we got 40 switches. If we get 40 people to all pop these switches at the same time, it should create enough cosmic energy to make the switch. The only problem is we need 40 people, and there's like 7 of us. So we now see a montage of scenes of the club scrambling across both the school and the surrounding city to find anybody they have cross paths with and beg them to press the switch, or press one of these switches for them. With barely any time to explain what the fuck's going on. So yeah, that's what's happening. And of course, they do find them through a combination of former horoscopes, background characters, teachers, and even Gamao himself takes one of the switches, specifically the drill switch. And of course, because I have this pulled up, the wiki cataloged every person who got a switch, and half of them are fucking references. So Kengo has Rocket, and Yuki has Cosmic, of course. Launcher went to the former Orion Zodiart. Drill went to Gamao. Radar went to Yuki's Stalker. Magic Hand went to the former Witch Zodiart. Camera went to Myri, if you remember, Orion's girlfriend. Because she's from the photography club.
Yeah.
Parachute went to Lynx, the former Lynx Zodiart. Chainsaw ended up going to the former Unicorn Zodiarts. Hopping went to the math teacher that we've been introduced, or a math teacher we've seen before. More or less, he's another background character. Alec went to Jake because that was his club introduction. If you remember Haruka, now Nagasawa, she picked up scissors and has a nice little moment with Yuki in this. Beat went to the Glee member from the Christmas episode, like the one that was named. Chain-Array went to our former Hound Zodiart. Smoke went to the computer teacher. Spike ended up going to our former Dragon. Winch went to the Cygnus, or not the Cygnus Zodiart. You remember the lady that was the head of the cult for Cygnus? She got one. Inga picked up Flash. The guy who was Capricorn got Shield. One of Miyu's 2 sidekicks, the one that wasn't Chameleon, got Gatling. Tomoko got Fire because that was her introduction. The one that was Chameleon got Invisible. Hound's father, who was a teacher, got Hammer. Ran, if you remember, a current club member, got Water, which that's a reference we'll get to later. And by later, I mean later in the episodes. Yukina from the school trip episodes got Medical. The former Hair Zodiarts got Pen because she's a reporter. Aaron from last week got Wheel. Reiko, if you remember, was the person Gintaro approached to beat Miyu for the queen thing. You know, her 5 seconds of screen time. She got a switch. She got Screw. Yuri, one of the witches from Tomoko's introduction, got Hand. Cygnus himself got a switch. Then we see it on screen. He got Scoop. Miyu and Shin got the magnet switches because, of course, they do. They're the shipped pair. Usugi himself got Freeze. Okumura, one of the other switches, got Claw. There's one person here who does not have an article, but I believe I looked her up. She's from episodes 35 and 36. She got bored. Giant Foot went to the head of the delinquents that Gintaro kept beating up in the early episodes. The guy who looks like he's from a mob movie. 2 more people that I don't know who are because they don't have links to who they are, and I didn't check for faces. Haru got Net because that's what beat him. Stamper went to the former Perseus Zodiart. And that is every goddamn person who got a switch. All of them. Like I said, references galore. Again, someone looked at A to Z and went, I want that moment where everyone is rooting for Shotaro and Philip and has all those cameos from all those people from all the episodes. Anyway, back to the movie. Switches in hand, Yugi counts down everyone over the loudspeaker, and everyone presses their switches at the same time. But for us as an audience member, we see them press it as a countdown from 40 to 1, which is a nice touch. And they end up making the final switch, Fusion, which number is EX, because it doesn't have a number.
Because of course it doesn't.
And also, it is not a circle switch, it is a square switch. It's the opposite hand, for reasons we'll get to. Back in the control room, Ryusei and Gintaro are plopped onto the floor, and they're about to be murdered, only for Kingo and Inga to arrive, delivering Fusion to Gintaro. And he transforms, going Meteor Fusion states, literally yoinking Meteor Switch out of his driver and into his. For now, he is a not quite 2-in-1 rider, since his suit is a fusion of more or less Meteor Storm and Cosmic. So how did you feel about fusion states?
I kind of like it, but I have a minor point of that's not how that should work. The fact that Gintaro manages to completely imitate Ryusei.
That's because that's the power of the Meteor Switch.
Except it's not. That's the way that he fights.
I know. Don't worry. You'll see the suit again. And how would you like a fusion of Meteor and Nadeshiko into Gintaro?
But like I said, that's not how that should work.
Don't worry. It gets dumber from that description. But we'll get there. It might have been a step too far on that end.
Like, I feel like everything with Fusion would have been fine if it had have been something similar to like how Geo Trinity was.
Yeah.
Where they're in the same body. That way it would make more sense. Okay, in these points, that's Ryusei doing the actions, not Gentaro, and vice versa.
Yeah.
I feel like doing it this way, it's like, that's not how that should work. But
you do
okay.
But you do get the fun thing of Gentaro voicing all of the wachas and stuff.
Reverting back to earlier statement.
Yeah. Although I do like the touch that it is a fusion of Meteor Storm and Cosmic. Literally, their two strongest forms fused into one of just... And I almost feel like that hints at the fact of, hey, if they did get to go Meteor Storm and Cosmic from earlier, they probably would have beat them.
Very true.
But yeah, with newfound power in hand, Gentaro fights them off, like you said, imitating Ryusei a lot, and it's kind of just hilarious to watch. And baffling at the same...
But it's just one of those, I'm like, okay.
I do like this fight scene is also, has, Fourze's theme playing during it, since this is Gentaro's big hero moment for the movie. Because he rips into the lot of them. But pushing them back more or less forces them to go, all right, time for the big CG fight for the movie. Because they head outside to the moon and transform into their vehicle modes. I want to say that was a thing from the original series, but don't quote me on that. So Groundyne becomes a car, and Skydyne becomes a jet, if you couldn't tell from their designs of being a car and jet. So now, combined together in their vehicle modes, they might have the edge on Gentaro, except he calls in the Powerdizer and Sigler in their vehicle formation to fight them that way. So, unfortunately, they have no edge because Gentaro proceeds to mop the floor with the both of them.
No matter what they try to do.
Yep, and with a fusion drill kick and a spin kick on top of it, for good measure, the siblings are kaboom, ending the threat of them. So XV2 gets the friendship handshake twice in this movie, mind you, because Gentaro does it to the little camera bot before all of the Switch stuff, and then now gets the friendship, the giant robot. So I guess he's super best friends with him now. And XV2 heads off into space to go explore and to return in Movie Tyson Ultimatum in cameo form. So we have not seen him. We have not seen the last of XV2. Back on Earth, Inga says goodbye to Ryusei at the temple and makes Toboko a bit jealous in the process because if you haven't noticed, they're kind of shipping Toboko and Ryusei.
I mean, I'm hard to miss.
Yep. But Inga is not done. She will return as well in Movie Tyson Ultimatum, which feels like this weird culmination of the last 3 years worth of movies in a weird sort of way. Yeah, I was talking about this when I was doing Clue, but yeah, it kind of culminates in that movie, but we'll get there eventually. But within the movie, with the club heading off for another day of school, with Yuki asking Gentaro he's going to befriend next, and Gentaro decides to break the fourth wall and say, "You, person sitting there in the audience, I will befriend you next." And that is everyone at Spacetime / everyone's space is awesome / everyone's space is here. How did you feel about Fourze's solo outing?
I liked it. I gotta say, it did a good job of having a villain kind of that you could tell was kind of outside the main show, fit into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because like that wasn't a hidden fact. It wasn't anything like that. No, this actually felt like a Fourze can do more than just beat down horoscopes kind of deal.
Yeah, here's two androids who are referencing an old series and go berserk because they got too much cosmic energy. And a kind of twist of fate. Yeah, I like this movie. I like the solo writer films that just go, here's a villain outside of the normal stuff our writer normally deals with that they now have to deal with.
And I honestly feel like that really should be how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, obviously you still have some kind of something to where you could place the continuity. That way it doesn't just feel like it is its own thing way out in nowhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, this did that too.
Yeah. Because I'll be honest, I've come to the point with Rider where I'm like, as long as we can take a soft continuity connection approach, I'm fine with it. We don't need hard continuity. Because that takes planning and oversight, and sometimes that just doesn't happen.
Well, okay, looking at that, this might be the reason why the line about Taurus was kind of removed. It might have been a case of they planned for it to be within continuity where it is, but they also gave the flex in case the show had to do something different.
Yeah. Just don't contradict continuity. That is all I ask, is you don't contradict established continuity.
And I feel like this kind of does both at the same time. Whether it was intentional or unintentional, that's a question that only the production staff would know.
Yeah. Because I hate it when the continuity is horribly and irreparably, like, gone against, to the point of just like, this isn't even the characters I know. This is something else. This is some alternate universe. Geo.
Yep.
But here it's just like, oh yeah, here's Gintaro and crew on a little side adventure that happened between episodes. Then we don't mention it in series because it's not relevant. And it's not important enough. It happened. It's over here. Good. Everyone feels like themselves. That's all I ask. That's all I want. Yeah, I just really enjoyed this movie. It's a really good movie. But any other specific thoughts?
Nah.
All right, then next time for TGSR, we're back to the normal episodes where we pick up where we left off with Tomoko being dumped in the Dark Nebula and the fallout from there into some wonderful twists and stuff. And eventually into Sagittarius's introduction. But if you enjoy what you've seen, drop us a follow. Really appreciate it. We're some nebulous value between 189 and 191 towards our follower goal, according to Twitch. So get us over 200 and we don't have to worry about it. At TG Saloon on Twitter is where to go to get notified when we go live. And ! Discord gets you the Discord link. Drop us a question in the show chats. We'll happily answer it here or on TGS. Depends on where it's more relevant. That'll do it for Tommy. I'm Peace. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.